Wanna know where is my tool bucket? Who took it from me? Broke into my house that night and stole from me. Using up blowtorch is quite insanity. Then got a rock and threw it through the window, the back door window. Snuck into the house, that foolish bucket foe. Took it to the pawn shop to get money. Need your hands here now. Hey dude man, coolest thing around. Got my show now. You're my hands right now. This is Adam Sheffield. Welcome to American Heritage Center Radio, home of the Property Therapy and Talent Development Program. We are Adam Sheffield and John Pine, the Property Therapists for America. And remember, if your property has problems or issues, it needs therapy. And in taking care of property, it takes care of you. We've got a lot of great property stories in our own lives to share this week, and property stories of others that we've read about.
Yeah, we don't have any special guests this week, but we're going to feature some songs and some history from the Hispanic and Latino culture, and we're going to hear about some books that Adam read about life in Mexico, life south of the border. What else is new?
We have our new YouTube channel, type in Property Therapy Show, and our new Facebook page, Property Therapy Show, and also on the other social media platforms.
We're going to have an Instagram and probably a Snapchat here eventually to do some short videos. But yeah, we definitely have the Property Therapy Show channel on YouTube. That's our channel name. And then also on Facebook, our new Facebook page is Property Therapy Show. So it's all consistent. We can find us. Get in there and give us some comments, give us your feedback, tell us your own stories, send us your own videos, ask us questions, get involved.
Yeah, I mean, if you want us to address anything and make any videos regarding property therapy issues, just get involved. So we've got property stories, a lot of property stories going on this week. We're going to talk about John's kitchen remodeling work and some awesome HVAC tools, high-end tools we've got for digital HVAC tools now you got. And then on a Nissan Rogue, a misplaced diagnostic, giving a important reason for property therapy skills in our own lives. And then we're going to talk about the lady in red, the video, and the property destruction that's going on in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And then we're going to break down the opening song lyrics. The opening song goes, we'll start with that, it says, "Want to know where is my tool bucket? Who took it from me? Broke into my house that night and stole from me. Using a blowtorch is quite insanity. Then got a rock and threw it through the window, the back door window. Hey dude man, coolest thing around. Got my show now. You're my hands right now." So this is when I wrote this song. This is from the lockdown suite that I wrote it under quarantine, and this is written on one of the property therapy issues out there of possibilities of tools walking away from you.
Theft.
And so this was a little story that when someone broke into one of my rental properties, they broke into the back window and stole my tool bucket out of the house.
And they used a blowtorch.
Yeah. It was a plexiglass window, and the window in the back was blowtorched through, and I cut the window out, and I still have it to this day. Maybe we'll frame it at the Heritage Center as a historical artifact.
Definitely, yeah.
And so in the window, and it shows, got a rocket. So the blowtorch using a blowtorch is quite insanity. So they blowtorched through, I would say maybe a golf ball would be able to get through that plexiglass. And then the malefactor then just gave up on the blowtorch insanity. And then it says, and got a rock and threw it through the window.
So they had their own tool library.
Yeah,
it was limited. A limited tool library, but they got the job done.
Yeah, so they then got a rock and threw it through the window, or the back door window, broke into the house that night, and then stole the tool bucket from me. And then but this song, the music to the song,
that's catchy.
Yeah, I had that. I came up with that when I was a little kid. I was in the air guitar. I remember we were living in a duplex in like Utah somewhere in our family, and I was going.
That's catchy, like a TV theme song, but we made a radio theme out of it. Radio show.
And then the "Hey dude man, coolest thing around." I would sing that to myself and charge myself up. I go, "Hey dude man, coolest thing around," and then I would jump up really high.
Like when you're playing like superheroes.
Yeah.
That was your property therapy man was your superhero.
That was it. And there was, in the duplex, I remember that there was this doorbell chime that was up high, like 6-7 feet in the air, and then I would go, "Hey, dude, man, coolest thing around," and I would jump up really high and try to ding the doorbell with my hand. And so in the song, it goes, "Hey, dude, man, coolest thing around, got my show now, you're my hands right now." So I turn to the audience, to you guys, you're my hands now. The tool bucket is to the ages now. And the video, I do have a video of my legendary tool bucket. It's on the Facebook page that I made, and it was designed on half. I had the stabber jabbers, the screwdrivers, the nail punches on one side, and then I had on the other side of the tool bucket by double-handled pliers, cutters, whatever was two-handled. So I had my tool library organized, and then I had all the trades in the tool bucket, and that tool bucket was so heavy.
So it's like a 5-gallon bucket with the apron around it?
5-gallon bucket with the apron on it.
Yeah.
And and I had every trade in there, the plumbing trade, the HVAC tools in there. I had electrical in there, drywalling in there, painting in there, and that thing was so blasted heavy.
Mm-hmm. I did the same thing with my tool belt. So I am like a walking tool bucket, and what I end up doing is I just carry my tool belt in, and whatever I don't need for that whatever job I'm doing, I just kind of set on the counter and strap the belt on, and I lose as much weight as I can for things that I don't need, and set them by the door, so I'll pick them up on the way back to the car or the truck, whatever I'm about to do. I still have that big tool belt, and it's so heavy, so I strap this tool belt on because it's good. If you're going up a ladder through like the little crawl space access to pull some wires through an attic like what I've been doing, a belt works better than a bucket because sometimes you have a really narrow access, and then you want everything right there with you as you move around in a limited access area. So you're not dragging a second, like a bucket full of tools. So it's nice to have everything right there on you, and it helps if you put everything in the same place. So like all your screwdrivers are on one side and all your pliers are on the other side, or wire cutters or things. Because sometimes you're up in the dark. So you reach down in your belt, know right where it is, and just like Batman, you pull out your
utility belt.
Pull out whatever your shark repellent spray, whatever your bat shark repellent spray, or whatever it is that you need. But yeah, I've seen the guys use the bucket, and I think maybe the best of both worlds would be to have a belt and a bucket, and then have that bucket to offload your excess things, or have your extra screws, your boxes of screws and things that you like, your common screws. And then you can just kind of switch back and forth, kind of load up your belt and make your run, do your work, and then come back to your bucket, and then back out to the car. You're done for the day.
We also have our logo now for the Property Therapy Show.
Yeah.
Can we tell them about it?
Tell them about it. We're going to have it debut this week.
Yeah, it's a violin with a judicial hammer, with a gavel that a judge uses in the courtroom, and then it's on top of a violin. And so it signifies how property therapy got me into law school. And also the law, the roots of where the law comes from is what you do with your hands. The law doesn't really much get involved with what you're thinking about, it's once you start affecting the community, your hands, so I call it the hands theory of the law. Once there's conduct, then the law gets involved. So that has that connection with the property therapy with the hands, and also how property therapy got me into law school, and also how property therapy can get everyone where they want to go in the future. So, and also it harkens back to the hammer, the tradesman hammer as well, and that's the contractors, the judge's hammer right there, isn't it? The gavel.
Yeah, and as property therapists, we battle the elements, we battle the laws of physics. So
true.
So it symbolizes how we're in this battle to preserve and maintain and restore things. And once you do that, then you get to enjoy something like you might enjoy playing your violin or whatever your passion is.
Yeah.
That you might not be getting paid for, but something you enjoy doing. It doesn't have to be a violin for you. I mean, for you it is, but for our listeners, it might be a golf club, or spending time with their kids, reading. It might be a book. So it could be the gavel with item of their choice. Could be their logo.
That's right. So that's what attracted me though to the violin. I remember when I was a boy, I always wanted to be a violin soloist, and the Bach's Chaconne and Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto, I remember it brought me to tears when I was a boy, and so I knew that I wanted to sing with my hands, and that's what violin is. It's a way of singing with your hands, And so that's our goals as the violinists, is to be able to remove all the physical inhibitions of your body that prevents you from being able to sing with your hands. And it's the same in the property therapy world too, being able to sing with your hands, accomplishing whatever you want to do. When I was in law school, they had me bring my violin to the trial advocacy class, and the professor said, play 2 contrasting styles. And he didn't know what I was going to play. And I played Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. Da, 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 da. And then I played Nessun Dorma, Italian opera, Pavarotti. And then the professor, he takes the music off the stand, and then he says to the law students, he says, to most of you people, this is just ink blots on a sheet. But he took these ink blots on a sheet, and he made a song that you could readily relate to. And he said, that is your job.
Interpretation.
As an attorneys, yes, is to be able to take all the masses of facts, those ink blots, and all that information out there, and create a song that the trier of fact can relate to. Isn't that powerful? Mm-hmm. A parable. He says, that's your job. And then they wrote a news story about me in the Violin newsletter. It says, Violin and the Law, not far from where he started. Because ultimately the goal of an inspiring musician and as an attorney, it's the same, to be able to move the trier of fact or the audience to your interpretation of the score, whether the score is the mass of facts and data out there or whether it's the musical score in front of you. And so there was John has a musical score in front of him, a property therapy score for his kitchen that he has, all the schematics all written out. It's pretty impressive planning going on here.
Yeah, you can tell this is not my first one, because these are...
Not his first rodeo.
I like to use Lowe's.com. They have a pretty good kitchen designer. No sponsor of ours, but they have sponsored us before. So
yes, at Santa Calagon, they were our sponsor for a couple of years at our PEX plumbing booth.
Mm-hmm. And thanks to them for that, and hopefully we can get some more sponsorship from them in the future here with our new show and videos and things. But
what John has done here in his rental property, he's demolitioned one of the walls and opened up the kitchen to have a more open space.
We flush out races right out of that room, and it's all one open, equal space for everybody now. It's there's nothing constricting you or holding you down, holding you back. It's just all one big empty room, and I get to design it and go back and fix some things and update some things to the current codes. Makes it safe for the tenant.
So in his schematic he has in front of us here, we're live at the Heritage Center. For those that have tuned in, this is the Property Therapy Radio Show at the American Heritage Center every Thursday at 12 p.m. And property therapy is when property has problems or issues it needs therapy. And in taking care of property, it takes care of you. And so in this case, we have the property issue of the positive property issue is how you're going to realize your dreams or your plans on this property. So he has spaced the countertops, how long they're going to be, and then the cabinetry, the spacing and whatnot, and then
the appliances.
Yeah, the appliances and how they're going to jive with appliances and everything. There's a lot of planning that goes on here. You can't just slap this stuff around.
Yeah, if you're an inch off and your dishwasher's not going in that slot there, you're going to be doing some work for the next couple of days trying to make that right.
It gets expensive.
Oh, yeah. If you cut a countertop short or, it's...
This is the contractor. So this is why on the show and then in law school they taught us about whenever you're doing some kind of presentation or project, there's the madman stage, there's the architect stage, the contractor stage, and the judge stage. And the madman stage is where you're creatively brainstorming. What am I going to do? Am I going to break that wall out, open it up? Should I do that? Should I not do that? Yeah, and then you come up with a decision, okay. And then you go into the architect stage, which John is in right now, where you're like, okay, now we start prioritizing what's important, how this is going to set there, that's going to set there. And we have the pictures here. John has them on the phone of the circle of life. It's now in the death mode right now. Mm-hmm. He demolitioned it. He put it to death, and now he's going to bring it alive. And so he's architecting here, and everything. And then we share this at the Heritage Center and the writers group. Everything of value has to be created spiritually and intellectually before it's created physically, before it goes into the contractor stage. It has to be architect intellectually. Otherwise, wrecks happen. And this is also, by the way, an argument against biological evolution in the macro sense, because
Things don't just happen.
by themselves, things of value. I mean, you can splat a balloon full of paint on the sidewalk, but it doesn't look like a masterful kitchen. Okay, so John's doing an amazing job there on his architectural stage. And so, John, how far have you come along? Have you bought any of the materials for your kitchen there yet? Or that's just
Still hunting
architectural?
appliances. I like to look on Craigslist and try to find somebody who's getting rid of some color of appliance they don't like. White's a little outdated. I still like some of the white ones, but my kitchen colors go pretty good with black appliances or stainless. But
So John's done a lot of demo work. He had the kitchen tear out and the wall tear out, and then leveled
here-
up the floor with the patches.
this is one thing.
Floor leveler.
One thing I was able to find was I was telling you about this one 15 amp circuit with a 14 gauge wire was running the air conditioner in the living room, and that wire was going through the wall into the first kitchen cabinet, was running I think 3 or 4 kitchen countertop outlets, and then over to the refrigerator outlet, and then I traced it down to the basement where it went back up through the wall up to the ceiling of the next bedroom over, and then from there I haven't traced it yet. That's way too much stuff for one 15 amp outlet on a 14 gauge wire. I mean,
It's overkill.
your kitchen itself, like in a modern kitchen, is going to have like 6 or 8 separate, 15 or 20 amp circuits. So this,
You run too many appliances and activity through a single circuit, it gets too hot. The gauge cannot handle it with those small residential wiring.
and this wire was, this electricity was a retrofit or an afterthought maybe for this house. Because it's an older house. It's got the lath and plaster walls, but the wire was, somebody put holes in the cabinets and then pushed the wire up above the countertop and then used some kind of like foam sealant.
And that's one of the rules of thumb in construction is generally you want to overkill with safety.
Yeah, you're supposed
It's
to have like outlets that are supposed to be GFCI to protect you from the electric shocks and electrocution. And you're supposed to have one every 2 feet so you don't run your appliance cords too long and get them tangled up, or get a hot pan on a cord and melt it.
So if you're wiring and you're not sure like what gauge wire you should put in higher than you think you need.
If you're not
and then
sure
you can
what
sleep
breaker,
at night.
Yeah, if you're not sure what breaker it goes to, always use the thicker wire. Which
The
is
thicker wire, like
12
gauge. And gauge is the diameter, the thickness of the wire.
It's harder to bend. It's a little bit harder to work with. It's a little more expensive, but it'll never let you down.
Okay, so John's been doing some amazing work on his kitchen, some property therapy work, and then also he got some incredible HVAC tools.
Yeah,
now HVAC is heating and cooling.
Yeah, after I get this this kitchen in, it's had window AC units, and this house really deserves. It's going to have a nice kitchen. It's going to deserve some central air. So I ordered some a set of Field Piece. What is this? A Job Link kit, which it's all the wireless sensors for when you're installing a new system to make sure it's up and running right. Check your charge of your Freon and see if you're getting the SEER rating, which is the efficiency rating of your air conditioner unit. See if everything's working right and everything's up to specs.
It's pretty incredible how it's all going digital. It's gone are the hoses, the gangly octopus hoses going everywhere.
Oh yeah, HVAC Tony's excited because he knows all the old school stuff. He's going to help me put it in. But
going to put a high efficiency furnace in there.
Instead of using
those are awesome.
Instead of using those old gauges with the hoses, which may be a little bit leaky, when the ends get used several times. I got this digital vacuum gauge coming, and it looks like what's this called? The evacuation hose. It's an oversized vacuum hose for your vacuum pump, which pumps it down a lot faster and a lot more efficiently.
Awesome.
It pulls a deeper vacuum, which you need this micron gauge here on your digital vacuum gauge. So we'll make a good video of that, I'm sure, when it all comes in. And because of the virus, some slowdowns, I'm waiting for my equipment to come in. They said it was going to be about a month.
So the diagnostic, these are tools that help with diagnostics on HVAC diagnostics. And but we had a not a very good diagnostic on a car this week, didn't we?
A very poor diagnostic.
On my sister's Nissan, and she came back. We're not going to say which shop it was, but it was in Kansas City, and they came back in the diagnostic. It said that it was diagnosed with a bad transmission, timing chain rattle, overheating codes. And what did you find out? What was actually going on?
I had about 10 minutes to look at it, which is probably less time than they spent looking at it. And of course,
and they said it would be $7,000 of repair.
On what's the car worth?
The car was $1,500 at auction.
Yeah,
So Blue Book probably 3, 4.
I think they were basically saying, we looked at it and it's not worth fixing, so we're going to write you a number, because we don't even want to fix it for that much. That's the I don't even want to do it price for the shop. They're like, yeah, we don't want to mess with this, whatever it is. But yeah, they should at least give you a good diagnostic for your money. And
But there were some outlets that were unplugged.
yeah, well, I brought my code reader in, and it says, well, it's overheated. We got some overheating issue. I cleared that code out, and I was thinking, well, let's start it up and see what it does. I guess the complaint was there was some smoking. It's supposed to be a non-smoking car, I believe. Right? So we have some smoke coming out somewhere, and I'm not sure, but I opened the hood, and I see that both of the electric fans are not even plugged in.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was some kind of diagnostic they were running, or they were trying to get up the temperature quicker, or trying to simulate a fan not running to see if it would overheat. Maybe.
Yeah, and an engine's going to overheat if it doesn't have the fans running.
So one of two things happened. Either they unplugged them doing a diagnostic of some sort and forgot to plug them back in, or they didn't even realize they were unplugged, like I did, just by a 10-second inspection of the engine compartment. I'm like, well, these fans aren't even plugged in. Let's plug them in and see if that helps.
And yeah, so
I cleared the codes out. I'm like, well, even the AC's working good now, because that's what I was more concentrated. It was hot that day. I'm like, well, let's start this car. I'm going to sit here for a minute and get the AC going and see what the temperature gauge does. And it did go a little bit hot after a while, and that's when I got out and saw the fans were unplugged. And I had to run that day. And then you ended up putting some antifreeze in it, like half a jug,
half a gallon, and then we ran it for a half hour, flawless.
Yeah,
no overheating. The AC was working. No transmission slippings. It was just smooth like butter.
We should have sent her a bill for like half the original quote.
Yeah. So she's on her way. But that's one of the reasons of the importance of property therapy.
That's the importance of having a mechanic you can trust.
Yeah. And if you have that in your own life, you can help people around you and yourself be able to be self-reliant and protect yourself. So we have the Nissan. That was the Nissan Rogue Saga. And there's also in the news, speaking of rogues, there's some rogue politicians that have caused the communities, especially in Baltimore, to really be degraded for decades. We have the woman, the lady in red.
Yeah, this is a little 2-minute, 50-second ad of hers that's been making the rounds online. We're going to play it here real quick.
Do you care about Black lives? The people that run Baltimore don't. I can prove it. Walk with me. They don't want you to see this. I'm Kim Klasick. This is Baltimore, the real Baltimore. This is the reality for Black people every single day. Crumbling infrastructure, abandoned homes, poverty, and crime. Baltimore has been run by the Democrat Party for 53 years. What is the result of their decades of leadership? Baltimore is one of the top 5 most dangerous cities in America. The murder rate in Baltimore is 10 times the U.S. average. The Baltimore poverty rate is over 20%. Homicide, drug, and alcohol deaths are skyrocketing in our city. Do you believe Black Lives Matter? I do. The vast majority of crime in Baltimore is perpetrated against Black people, who make up 60% of the population. So why don't we care about our communities? The Democrat Party have betrayed the Black people of Baltimore. If the politicians walked the streets like I do, they would see exactly how their policies and corruption affects us. But they don't want to see it. They don't want you to see this. Go to any Baltimore neighborhood and ask this question. Do you want to defund the police?
No.
No.
Absolutely not. I had 3 sons killed in Baltimore City. And I think if we defund the police office, it's going to be worse than that. So no, I'm opposed to that.
What are you going to defund the police for? Why? How do you defend your city, your community? Families are losing people.
It's not just Baltimore. The worst place for a Black person to live in America is a Democrat-controlled city. It's 2020. Name a blue city where Black people's lives have gotten better. Try. I'll wait. Look at this. How are children supposed to live here and play here? Democrats think Black people are stupid. They think they can control us forever. That we won't demand better and that we'll keep voting for them forever, despite what they've done to our families and our communities. Are they right? I'm Kim Klasick, and I'm running for Congress because I actually care about Black lives. All Black lives matter. Our communities matter. Baltimore matters. And Black people don't have to vote Democrat.
Now that's what I call a campaign ad.
Yeah, so property therapy is how we're going to help channel the talents of those in the Black community. And this racism, whether objective or subjective racism, is going down. So we're going to dedicate this song to the Black Lives Matter protesters that take down the racism like the Titanic's It's Going Down. So here's the Titanic song. Yes, Black Lives Matter, but they don't matter to the Democrat Party that have been using the racial issue without really helping them.
That's coming from a Black person. I mean, she's
It's incredible.
It's the same thing that Ben Shapiro says every day. He's not allowed to say that because he's not Black, but the truth is self-evident when you see the same stories and you just that's the other thing I use YouTube for is you can take a look around your major cities.
Yeah, and look at the institutional racism that's abounds in the Democrat Party that has historically been that way, and even in our own time, like with the school choice. They're not even for school choice because they don't want Black people in their schools. It's just institutional racism. It's disgusting. And then on the policies of abortion, so like 70-80% of all abortions are Black babies, and the Democrats don't want the Black people overrunning the white community. Cut them down. You look at the foundations of Margaret Sanger, the foundations of Planned Parenthood. She's disgusting. She thought the Blacks were inhuman, and she wanted to cut them down. And it was very much against, very much in line with the Darwinian thesis in Charles Darwin's Descent of Man book. He says that the Black race is less evolved than the white race, and the Black race is destined for extinction. And this has been an ongoing theme in the Democrat Party is they've have had issues with genocide from the Indians, the Native Americans. The Indians would be the white privileged term. The Native Americans would be the brown privileged term. The Democrats' genocide with the Native Americans / Indians, and then the Democrats' issues with the KKK genocide, and the Blacks' issues with the abortion, the feticide going on today. And so they've had problems with the genocide and the hatred historically. Now, the Democrat Party has also been a party that has given a lot of people hope, economically hope, but it's for those whatever they choose to focus on. Like they have this like this blinders on, like a horse blinders, and whatever they choose to focus on, it's hope for these people. But if you're not in that, within that scope, what they're focusing on, you better watch out. Genocide's coming your way. Like for women in abortion, they want to make things comfortable for the women, but the heck with those fetuses. They're not even persons. They have no existence. You know, they're things, they're property, and they're property of the woman. They can be destroyed, et cetera, et cetera. It's a painful thing to think about. And the property therapy is what's going to make Black community truly get traction for the first time and depart from the sweet candies of the Democrat Party that have bought the Black community off without really helping them, that have wanted the issue of race instead of actually helping the Black community. And they've had this sense that for years that we're not getting traction, we're not getting anywhere, and then the community's been dissolved, and then what happens is, if you're not having forward momentum, when like police officers, they malfunction, and it happens. It's a rough profession. Policing mistakes. Problems happen, and if you're not getting traction for a momentum in your life, it becomes even more grating for you. If you've been psychologically damaged, like in the news with what happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Yeah, we had a 29-year-old man. Turns out he's got 6 kids. Had 3 of them in the car. He struggled with several police officers. There's now 2 videos out where it shows from one side of the car where he'd. There's really no audio. You really couldn't tell what was going on or what was being said, but there was some wrestling going on, and he kind of broke free from them and kind of scooted around the front of his car and was getting into his car, and had a couple guys. One was still tugging on his shirt, and they were. I mean, I imagine what they're going to probably say is that they're worried about him getting a weapon out of his car, or if he was maybe. Turns out if he's under the influence of something, they didn't want him to get in this car. I don't know if they knew that those kids were in the car, but I don't know if. Turns out he does have a warrant out. And if they knew that or not, or actually had this guy's name, because they were responding to a domestic disturbance call, is what the original report was. And so here they are wrestling with this guy. You know, he looks like he's getting ready to hop in his car and drive off or get something out, and he ends up getting shot about 7 times. And
when he reached in his car.
Yeah, he reaches in his car.
It's stupefying when you think about it. When you know that the police officers are armed, you've seen all the videos and whatnot. It's what's behind this. It's psychologically damaged. Mm-hmm. We're trying to make a martyr out of himself.
Well, drugs could always be a part
perhaps,
of that. Just cloudy thinking. You don't know what their situation was.
Or anger, maybe anger at the police not wanting to lose face.
If it was if it was a domestic situation, guys and girls of any color get pretty crazy sometimes in their relationships. And he's a young man. He's a younger man. 29 years old. A lot of people in relationships in their 20s. They can drive each other crazy. I've been there.
we want to have the guys like this being able to channel their talents and get property.
Because whatever they're doing, it's not working.
Yeah,
I know
and this is why
the police showing up is not helping the situation. But even if the police weren't there, he was not doing anything constructive.
And this is why I admire so much here at the Heritage Center the Latino community and that their property therapy. Yeah. The Latino community are incredible property therapists, and they're probably the most potent property therapy force in our country right now. It's incredible. And that I've been reading, because I have such respect. This will be our for the Latin community's property therapy skills. I've been reading lots of books and it's in our Hispanic library here at the Heritage Center for our upcoming Hispanic radio station, and immersing myself in the Latin culture. There's I've read 4 or 5 books this week, and I'm back in law school mode here, just consuming books. And there's one book called Latinization: How Latin Culture is Transforming the United States. And in this book, I learned that this is when the book was published, was like a decade or so ago, and it said that in the Latin culture they did polls about how the Latinos define the American dream, and that's 80 to 90% of them define the American dream as owning their own home. And so, unlike in Chicago when this book was written, 50% of all the homes that were owned in the Chicago area are owned by Latinos. Incredible. and that's how they're getting traction, because they're not saying, "Now the government gives me this, and that." They're saying, "Give me property therapy, and I will get traction." And they're really having forward positive momentum into our culture and the Latinization of our culture. El futuro es Latino. And the next book that I read was called Antonio's and Delfino's Dream: True Tales of Mexican Migration. It was by Sam Cajones. He's a reporter from the LA Times. And in this book, it was incredible, the stories that he told of the Mexican migration. And the book tells the stories of the reason why the Mexicans migrate is because they do not wish to give in to the corruption of their area. And they want to be able to live in a place where they can do property therapy, and they can have they have the stability of the laws. And so that when you work, you do your property therapy, it doesn't all of a sudden, the rug doesn't get pulled out from under you. Like what happens so often down in South America. A person will show up in the middle the next day with a gun in your hand saying, "This is my place."
Yeah, because they defunded their police.
That's right. And so it's the defunding the police is not what creates the promised land. It creates talent flight. It creates instability. This is not why the Latinos came here. They came here because they are property therapists. And so in this book, it talks about some phenomena. I had no idea what's going on in Latin America, like in Mexico especially, that it's creating a phenomena of zombie areas, because all the talent in Mexico or in other places is going north. And they're shipping back money back into their country, but no one's wanting to invest any of this money because they're afraid of, it just going to waste or being stolen from them. So, but what happens is it's also creating another phenomena of the abandoned, amazing, gorgeous houses. And what's going on is these migrant workers will leave Mexico and they'll come up into the United States, make some good money, and buy their awesome truck. All of them have to buy the awesome truck, and then they come back with their awesome truck. And then they build a beautiful house in the place where they grew up, a really deprived area, but they're beautiful, gorgeous house with jacuzzi and whatnot. And it's in places where most of these places don't even have running water, but they put jacuzzis and swimming pools in places. But what's going on is that they want to show off the wealth and how proud they are. They've made something of themselves, so they want to show that to the community, to the people that they grew up with. But they don't stay there. In Mexico, where they grew up, they get restless. It's like trying to put a mighty oak tree back into the acorn. They get restless and they don't want to stay there anymore, and they feel like they're not paid for their time, adequate time. And so what happens is they leave after 2 or 3 weeks, a year. They leave, and then finally to the point where they're just completely, it's the abandoned beautiful houses. And some of these beautiful houses, the locals take and they fill with grain and put corn cobs in the jacuzzis for their livestock.
Is that why they call them migrants? Because they make the trip home like birds do, and then they back to the north.
Yeah, so they get homesick, but they get restless. So they're living in the two worlds. So the stories are, it's just the humanity of the Latino humanity. It's a beautiful thing. And that's and I just truly admire their entrepreneurial spirit and their property therapy skills.
Like I don't watch a lot of TV or movies, but if they just made one long documentary called "What Really Goes On in Mexico," I'd probably just binge watch that.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I've listened to some podcasts of some guys who used to work for the police force down there and ended up moving up north, and they've got some stories. And
another phenomena that I learned from this is that they have the rebar houses. They'll build one floor of the house, and then they'll leave rebar sticking up out of the walls.
So I should I took my kitchen and just had a little rebar.
He's drawing a little rebar spikes sticking out of a picture of the.
Add on to the family, we got to go straight up and put that second floor on.
For those who have just tuned in, we are Property Therapists for America, John Pine and Adam Sheffield. We are live here at the American Heritage Center, 12 p.m. at noon every Thursday. We have our property therapy show, and our new logo. We've got now the violin and the judicial gavel as our logo. For the violin is the hands-on element of the law and how the law comes from what you do with your hands. And in my legal background, and incorporates also reminiscences of a contractor and of a contractor of the law. That's what a judge is, the contractor of the law. And then the violin is a parable for how property therapy can help you realize your talents in all sorts of ways.
Allows you to sing your song.
That's right.
Yo soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma. Yo soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma. Y ante la muerte me quiero, verse la malma. Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera.
So we were just telling property stories. What we've been covering is property stories in our own life, and also about the property therapy stories of the Latin culture. To that end, we dedicate this Latin song, to all the property therapists, all those people that inspire us from the Latino community, including one of our very own in the American Heritage Center community, Tilly Ayala, who's the winner of the property therapy essay contest winner scooter competition, the red scooter. She's the lady on the red scooter. Mm-hmm. And she now will do a demonstration every Wednesday at Rivers and Lexington in Independence from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Her All Lives Matter presentation. And she is also being in the media and being interviewed for her wonderful efforts here, because all lives matter, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. And
unborn lives matter.
Unborn lives matter. And we want to see people getting traction. We want to see all the talent channeled. We want to see the Black community really channeling into the property therapy, like the Latino community has really been amazing with this and getting traction in their lives. And so we've been talking about the Latino, the books that I've been reading, lots of Latin books for our Hispanic outreach here. So we've talked about the Latinization of the culture, Delfino's Dream. And then another book that I read this week was Latino History. It's called The Complete Idiot's Guide to Latino History and Culture. And it's fascinating insights into the Latin American culture and the heritage of Mexicans, Cubans, and Puerto Ricans. And there's some fascinating things about the history of the people in South America and the Andes. It talks about the one story in there. It talked about they call him the George Washington of South America. He helped to free the South America from Spain's influence. And he took one campaign of troops over the Andes Mountains. And the mountains, they call it the backbone of South America. And it's so long that it could run from California to New York and back. Wow. That's how long that chain is. And it's so high. And in order to beat the Spaniards, he took a campaign. He took thousands of troops, marched them over the mountains and back down, and he just slaughtered the Spaniards that weren't even expecting it. And this is, I believe his name was Simon Bolivar, if I remember that name. And then other stories about it was either the Incas or the Aztecs, or one of them, or the Toltecs. I think it was Toltecs. And it's talking about how their culture used, they didn't have writing, but they had pictorial pictures, and how they would preserve their history. And they would write them in pictures, but they had a priesthood of interpreters that would come along and that would share with the community what those pictures meant. And when the Spaniards came and took over the South America, they executed them all. All the historians gone. And then one generation they forgot of like their entire histories
It'd be like having a lot of emojis that we didn't know what they mean.
Exactly.
Like we didn't recognize the faces and
and
the
every color,
characters, yeah.
like the colors were all significant for this and that in parables and meanings and whatnot, and we've lost a lot of that. And it also talks about how the Latin Americans in South America, they gained their freedom when, especially in Central America, when Napoleon took over Spain. And the people in Latin America were like, yeah, it demystified the Spaniards. Oh, yeah, they're not that tough after all. Cortez came at us with guns and horses, and all we had was clubs. But these Spaniards aren't that tough after all. Look how they just got taken over by Napoleon. And they're like, oh, wow. And then so they all of a sudden, all of them declared independence. And Spain didn't have anything they could say. They were preoccupied.
Yeah, had a fire at home to put out.
So this is some fascinating Latino history, and this is from the Complete Idiot's Guide to Latino History and Culture. And we are so proud to have the Latino immigrants in America and their property therapy, how the example that they set for America. And so these are the books, 3 of the books. Another book that I read, and I'm halfway through, it's called Hispanic Latino Theology, Challenge and Promise. And in this book, it talks about the prominence of the Catholic faith and the Pentecostal faith in Latin America. And in the Pentecostals, as I'm learning about the vibrancy of their faith that they have here, and also the influence of the Catholic Church. Did you know that back in the heyday of the 1800s, the Catholic Church owned half of the property in Mexico?
Wow.
Think about that. They say the Mormons have a lot of property, like the second most property in the world, and the Mormons have only 17 million people. Like per capita, the Mormons have more property than any other peoples in the world. But the Catholic Church has 65 million. And then like 30 or 35% million of those are Latino Americans. And because
you were telling me the Mormons don't pay their
that's how the Mormons get so much property, is that they don't pay their clergy anything. It's all voluntary. And also they don't, what's the other thing? Oh, their tithing is based on gross.
Yeah, gross instead of net.
Not on net, not on profit. It's based on gross. So if you don't pay your tithing, full tithing, they don't give you a temple recommend. You can't go to the temple. So the Latino theology, the Pentecostal faith, is a vibrant faith in the Hispanic theology. And what I impressed me about the Pentecostal faith, and especially with Hispanics, is that they have a personal testimony of the Bible based on how the Bible's transformed their lives. So they want FTS. They want to see the proof in the pudding. They want to see it, how it's changed their lives. And then they say, well, there's something to this because of the works of faith and whatnot. And that to me is so real. I love it. I love it. So those are some Hispanic Latin theology and some of the books I've read. And then another person, and I've got to talk about this book. I love to read, and a lawyer's got to love to read and write.
Yeah.
And this book, it's not Latin theology, but it has, this is written by an atheist philosopher, Bertrand Russell, Why I'm Not a Christian. And it's a 300-page.
It's a lot thicker than I would expect it to be.
Yeah, he
really gets into it.
Yeah. He has all sorts of attacks on Christianity while he's not a Christian. He's a famous atheist philosopher, Bertrand Russell. And one of the things he argues on here is the God argument, where there can't be a God because where did God come from, right?
It's always who made the chicken or the egg.
Yeah. So
not only which one came first, but then who made the original one.
So I respond to this, that matter can't be created or destroyed. It just changes form. In the physics, they had the double slit experiment of showing the agency of matter, that light behaves as a wave or it behaves as particles based on how it's being observed. It's extraordinary.
I remember that came out a few years ago.
No, it's extraordinary. And they thought, well, if the further we get back away from the experiment, we can change the result. Like we'll zoom in from 10 miles away with a high-powered telescopic telescope, and then we'll change. We'll go so far back that we're gonna make it have a different result. It doesn't change.
It's just like my kids. When I'm watching, I always get different results than if They think I'm not watching.
So it shows the agency of matter and implies of where God came from, where the spiritual evolution of he didn't have to be created because matter's always there. Mm-hmm. It's always there, but it's susceptible to enlargement based on the agency of whether it's being observed and whatnot. And God was more intelligent than they all, and got the jump on things and started coming together in this way. And then he brought us all along with him after that occurred. See the power of this and the double slit experiment. This was what we call at the Heritage Center the spiritual evolution. And I'm not saying that evolution is an open and shut case in a macro sense here on this earth, but we're talking about the origin of God, like beyond this earth's, the foundation of this world. We're talking back eons of time in the universe, way, back. We're not talking about in this earth because it's not an open and shut case of macroevolution. You can look at the evidence in different ways. There's a diversity of science, and that's okay. That's okay. You can have intelligent design, or you can have macroevolution. There's different ways of looking at the evidence. There's diversity of science. And when you get back into the origins, and we talk about this we talked about this with the Charles Darwin interview about the diversity of science out there. And Charles Darwin said, well, the bones are the worst challenge to my theory, and the lack of transitional species. And he just kicked the can down the road. He said, just dig more. And that was back in the 1800s. And the more we dig, the more things stay the same. So we want to see people have faith orientation in their life because it helps them become better property therapists, because it helps them have more purpose-driven existence. Like the Latinos and especially the Pentecostal faith, they have a lot of really vibrant following the Spirit. So get your FTS rings, FTS, following the Spirit, and you will know the truth of all things. FTS, the rings we have here at the Heritage Center. Call us at 816-674-3035. Again, call us at 816-674-3035. This is Adam Sheffield and John Pine with the Property Therapy Show live at the American Heritage Center.
Amazing property therapy, how sweet the sound has saved a wretch like me from racism. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see.